Sometimes it's not the sound of violence that haunts you, it's the silence that follows it. The silence of a child clutching what's left of her world, a broken doll, a trembling voice, and eyes that have already seen too much. She tried to speak, but the words came out cracked. They broke my doll and took my mom. People passed by whispering, watching, but no one moved. No one ever does. Until one man knelt beside her. He didn't ask questions. He just looked at the police tape, then at the child, and in that moment you could tell something inside him switched. What they took wasn't just her mother. They had taken his mercy too. And what came next would make them wish they'd never crossed Jasonstatham. Before we continue, if you've ever seen someone hurt and felt that pull in your chest, that voice whispering someone should do something, this story will hit deep. Because sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge or wait for permission. Sometimes it shows up in silence and moves like a storm. The sirens had faded hours ago, but the echoes still lingered in the air, faint, hollow, like the city itself was holding its breath. The street was taped off, the crowd gone, but the ache of what happened refused to leave. Jasonstatham stood near the curb, hands clenched in his jacket pockets, watching a little girl sitting on the pavement. Her name was Leela, 7 years old, cheeks streaked with tears, clutching a doll that was missing an arm. The same doll the kidnappers had thrown aside when they dragged her mother into a van. The officer kneeling beside her looked helpless. "We're doing our best, sweetheart," he said softly, but Leela didn't respond. Her tiny fingers picked at the doll's torn dress like she was trying to fix something she couldn't. Jason exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that comes when patience and rage collide. He'd just come from a nearby auto shop, an ordinary day, until he saw the chaos. The screech of tires, the scream that cut through the air, a woman shoved into a van, a child's cry echoing down the street. Now, hours later, the van was gone. The cops had questions but no answers, and the only clue was that broken doll, lying like a promise on the concrete. Jason crouched beside Leela. "Hey," he said quietly, his voice low and calm like he'd learned to be around people in pain. "That your mum they took?" She nodded, eyes wide and red. "You saw the van?" "It was black," she whispered, "and one of them had a scar here." She touched her own cheek just below her eye. "He broke my doll," he said. "She'd come back if I stopped crying." Jason's jaw tightened. That wasn't a lie a man told unless he enjoyed cruelty. He looked toward the officer. "You get a plate." "Partial," the man said. "We're running it, but could be hours, maybe days. You know how it goes." Jason nodded slowly. He did. He also knew that every hour counted and that the police, good intentions or not, were tied by procedure. He was. He glanced at Leela again. Her small hand reached out, holding the doll toward him. "Can you find her?" she asked. Jason didn't answer right away. His eyes lingered on the cracked plastic face, the dirt-streaked fabric. Then he looked her in the eyes. "Yeah," he said finally, "I'll find her." And something about the way he said it, quiet, certain, made even the officer stop and look up. He didn't waste time. By the time night fully fell, Jason was back in motion, tracing every angle of the block, retracing tire marks with a flashlight, noting the skid pattern that led toward the industrial district. He had a background in tactical logistics, ex-military, ex-private security. People didn't know much about him, but they didn't need to. They only needed to know that once Jason picked up a trail, he didn't lose it. At the far end of the street, a camera caught his attention, a small corner store with a busted sign and a working CCTV. Jason pushed the door open, a bell jingling overhead. "Shop's closed," the old clerk muttered without looking up. Jason placed a $50 note on the counter. "It's open for 2 minutes." The man blinked, then shrugged. "Fair enough." Jason pointed to the monitor. "Camera out front, I need the footage from this afternoon, around 3. The clerk hesitated. "You a cop?" "No," Jason said flatly. "Someone's kid watched her mum get taken." That was enough. The man pulled the USB drive and handed it over. Back at his flat, Jason loaded the footage on his laptop. The grainy image showed the van black, no plates visible from the front, speeding down the road. But then something caught his eye. On the rear window, for just half a second before turning the corner, there was a sticker, a faded logo with a red outline. He zoomed in. A welding company, one he recognized. He leaned back, processing. He'd done contract work in that same industrial park years ago. There was a warehouse near the docks that used the same brand. He didn't sleep that night. He didn't even try. Morning came like a blur, gray skies, cold wind, and a city that seemed too indifferent to the pain it housed. Jason parked near the docks, engine off, scanning the yard. The welding company logo was visible on one of the buildings, rusted but unmistakable. A security guard leaned against a truck, smoking, unaware he was being watched. Jason waited, patient as stone, until the man flicked his cigarette and walked toward the side door. That's when Jason moved. Quiet, efficient, the kind of movement that didn't waste energy. He followed the man inside, staying behind the hum of machinery, using the noise as cover. The place reeked of oil and metal, but beneath it he caught something else, the faint echo of a woman's voice. Muffled, desperate. He found the source behind a sliding door. Two men were arguing, one tall, with the scar Leela had mentioned, and another with a phone pressed to his ear. "She's worth more alive," the second man said. "You know that, her family's loaded." Scarface scoffed. "Then they should pay fast. Kid was supposed to be quiet, though. She screamed so loud I almost—" He didn't finish the sentence. Jason didn't let him. In a flash, Jason grabbed the nearby wrench, slammed it against the doorframe, and the men turned too late. The first blow hit Scarface square in the ribs, sending him sprawling into a table. The second man reached for a gun, but Jason was faster. He caught his wrist, twisted, and the weapon clattered to the floor. "Where's the woman?" Jason demanded. "She's in the back," the man shouted. "Please, Jason's hand tightened. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." Jason shoved him to the ground and stormed toward the back room. Inside, the woman, Leela's mother, Sophie, was tied to a chair, bruised but alive. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Who?" "Your daughter sent me," Jason said, cutting the ropes. "We're leaving." Her voice trembled. She's safe." "She's waiting for you," he said firmly. They moved fast. Sophie leaned on Jason as they made it out through the back exit. The air outside hit her face like freedom, but it didn't last long. Shouts echoed behind them. The rest of the crew had noticed. Jason turned, grabbed a piece of rebar from the ground, and met the first attacker head-on. The fight was quick, brutal, and efficient. Jason fought like someone who didn't need to prove anything, only to finish it. Within minutes, the men were down, groaning and cursing. He tossed the rebar aside, helped Sophie into the car, and sped off. By the time they reached the neighborhood again, the morning had softened into sunlight. Police cars lined the street. Officers turned as Jason pulled up, Sophie in the passenger seat. Leela was standing by the tape, still holding her doll. When she saw her mother step out, she ran full speed, arms out, voice cracking with relief. Sophie dropped to her knees, hugging her so tightly it hurt. Jason watched, standing a few steps back. The world seemed to slow, the sirens, the shouting, the chaos. It all faded until there was just that small reunion on the street and the quiet satisfaction of a promise kept. Leela looked up at him, smiling through her tears. "You found her," she said. Jason gave a half-smile. "Told you I would." The officers tried to question him, but by the time they looked, Jason was already gone, a shadow disappearing down the next street. Because for him, this wasn't about thanks. It wasn't about headlines or glory. It was about that one look, a little girl's eyes shifting from fear to safety. And somewhere, in the wreckage of that warehouse, the men who had broken her world would wake up to find themselves facing justice of another kind. The kind that didn't wait for courts or excuses. Jason had made them a promise. And for men like him, promises weren't made to be broken. The city woke up slowly the next morning, the kind of morning where the air felt heavy, like it was holding a secret no one wanted to say out loud. The headlines were already spinning: kidnapping foiled, mother and daughter reunited, suspects still at large. But what the news didn't know, what the police didn't see, was that the story wasn't finished. Because Jasonstatham knew one thing better than anyone. When men like that get desperate, they don't just disappear. They regroup, they plan, they come back. And this time, he was ready for them. It started quietly. Jason had gone back to his garage on the edge of town, trying to lose himself in the comfort of noise, the whir of tools, the hiss of air compressors, the smell of oil and metal that grounded him in something real. But even as he worked, he couldn't shake the image of Leela clutching that doll, its missing arm, its cracked face. The kind of thing most people would throw away, but she held on to it like it was the only thing in the world that hadn't left her. He'd seen too much of that look before, in kids whose worlds were ripped apart by men who thought cruelty was power. And he wasn't about to let those men get another chance. He was tightening a bolt when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but then he heard the voice. "Mr. Statham." Jason froze. It was Sophie, Leela's mother. Her voice trembled through the line. "They're watching the house," she whispered. "There's a black car across the street, same logo as before." Jason didn't ask how she got his number. He didn't waste time asking if she was sure. He just said, "Stay inside, lock everything, don't make a sound." Then he grabbed his keys and was gone. By the time he reached the neighborhood, the sun had dipped behind a row of half-finished buildings, casting long shadows over the street. The black car Sophie mentioned sat quietly near the curb, windows tinted, engine idling like it had been waiting for him. Jason parked a block away and approached on foot. He didn't need to see faces, the posture was enough. Two men in front, one on lookout, pretending to scroll through his phone. Professionals, or at least pretending to be. Jason's jaw set. He knew their type, the kind who mistake fear for respect. He circled the car, staying out of sight, and crouched behind the alley's corner. Then, quietly, he pulled a small metal object from his pocket, a valve core remover. Old habit from his mechanic days. He twisted it onto the tire's stem and let the air hiss out, soft and steady. When the car dipped slightly, one of the men looked around. "Oi, what was that?" Jason stepped out of the shadow, calm as ever. "Flat tire," he said. The man barely had time to turn before Jason's fist met his jaw, clean, fast, and final. The second man went for his gun, but Jason grabbed the car door, slammed it shut on his wrist, and yanked it open again. One kick to the chest sent him sprawling against the hood. Jason grabbed him by the collar. "Who sent you?" The man coughed, trying to catch his breath. "You don't understand." Jason shoved him harder. "Try me." "Her family," the man gasped. "The woman's family. They want her back. Said she ran off years ago, took something that wasn't hers." Jason blinked. "Her family." That didn't fit the picture. He'd seen Sophie's house, small, quiet, nothing to show old money or influence. She lived like someone who had let go of privilege long ago. The man nodded quickly. "They're rich, old money. They don't like their name being dragged through mud. They said the husband ruined her. They just want to bring her back." Jason's eyes darkened. "And they send you to do it." "She wasn't supposed to get hurt," the man said quickly. "They just wanted to scare her, make her come home, then you got involved." Jason let him go. The man stumbled back, clutching his ribs. "Get out of town," Jason said coldly, "before I forget to be polite." He walked back toward Sophie's house, mind racing. So this wasn't random. It wasn't about money. It was personal, controlled. Someone with power wanted her back. And they didn't care who they had to break to make it happen. When Sophie opened the door, her eyes widened at the sight of him. "You came," she whispered. Jason scanned the house, curtains drawn, lights dim. Leela was asleep on the couch, her small frame curled under a blanket. "Yeah," Jason said simply. "You said they were back." Sophie nodded, trembling. "I don't understand it. My family, they were rich, yes, but I left all that behind. I married someone they didn't approve of. When he died, I thought that was the end of it." Jason listened quietly. "They never forgave me," she continued. "Said I ruined their legacy. I guess they finally decided to fix it their way." Jason leaned against the counter. "They're not just fixing a legacy. They're trying to erase what reminds them of it." Sophie's eyes welled up. "You mean Leela?" He nodded slowly. "You said your husband's death accident." "That's what they told me, but now," she stopped, voice breaking, "now I don't know what to believe." Jason stayed the night, sitting by the window with a cup of cold coffee, watching the street. The black car never came back, not yet, but he knew this wasn't over. Men like that don't back off. They wait, they test your fear. So he decided to stop waiting. By dawn, Jason was already driving again, this time not to a crime scene, but to the address he'd pulled from the man's phone before letting him go. It led to the outskirts of town, a grand estate with tall gates, the kind that whispered money doesn't just buy comfort, it buys control. He parked half a mile away, watching from a ridge. The place was heavily guarded, men in suits, cameras, security patrols. He'd need a way in. That's when a delivery truck pulled up. Jason smiled faintly. Some habits never die. He followed the truck to the gate, slipping into its blind spot, climbing quietly onto the back before it rolled inside. Inside the estate, the halls gleamed with marble and money. Every inch screamed wealth, but beneath it all was rot. Jason moved through shadows until he found the main office, its door slightly ajar. Inside sat a man in his 60s, silver hair slicked back, voice calm and cold. "You told me she was handled," he said into the phone. "Now the police are sniffing around. I don't care if her daughter saw, fix it." Jason pushed the door open. "Afraid that's going to be a problem," he said. The man froze. "Who are you?" "The one who fixed what you broke." Jason stepped closer. "You sent men to drag her out of her home. You sent thugs to scare a child. You even tried to make her husband's death look like an accident." The man's jaw tightened. "You don't know who you're speaking to." Jason's voice didn't rise. "I don't need to, you already said enough." The man leaned back, smiling. "You think this ends with me? My lawyers, my people." Jason slammed his hand on the desk. "Your people are the reason that girl cries herself to sleep." Silence filled the room. The man's arrogance faltered for the first time. "What do you want?" Jason leaned forward. "You're going to leave them alone. You're going to make a call, tell your men to stand down, and you're going to do it now." "And if I do?" Jason's eyes narrowed. "Then you'll find out what it feels like to lose everything money can't buy." The man stared at him, then reached for the phone. Jason waited, arms crossed, as the old man muttered quick, nervous orders. When he hung up, Jason turned to leave. "You can't protect them forever," the man said behind him. "You walk away and they'll still find her." Jason paused at the door. "Then maybe they'll find me first." That night, Sophie and Leela slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The street outside was quiet, too quiet, maybe, but safe. Jason sat outside on the porch, listening to the crickets, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need headlines. All he needed was to see that little girl smile again. Leela came out quietly, rubbing her eyes. "You're still here," she said sleepily. Jason nodded for a bit. She climbed into the chair beside him, holding her doll. "Mom says you're like a guardian angel." He chuckled softly, "More like a tired mechanic who gets in the way sometimes." She smiled. "Well, I think you're cool." Jason looked at her, the innocence, the resilience, and something in his chest eased. "Get some rest, kid," he said softly. "You've got a big world waiting for you." She nodded and went back inside. Jason sat there a while longer, watching the horizon as dawn began to stretch across the sky. Somewhere out there, men like those were still walking free, but not for long. Because Jasonstatham had made a promise, not just to a child but to himself. And promises, when made in silence and sealed by resolve, don't fade, they wait. And when the time comes, they hit back twice as hard. Because for Jason, justice isn't about revenge. It's about reminding the world, some lines should never be crossed.